Thank you. Andy.
Well, can I firstly commend you for talking shit in this sort of forum? I was intrigued on your list of words and countries that describe shit. In the Tamil dialect of India, to shit is known as to pee.
Oh, that's confusing.
Which I no doubt is going to confuse a lot. But I think I agree entirely with Vivian in that you've said a lot about it, but you haven't yet said what it actually is. Can you have 30 seconds more just to tell us specifically what it is? What you're going to do and what is it?
What it is it's a campaign, it's a movement, it's people in NGOs and people in government who go to communities and who enable those communities to do their own analysis, come to their own conclusions, take their own action. And then there's follow-up, and the follow-up is absolutely vital. And with the follow-up which is supporting them in taking action. And then there's the sanitation ladder. Sometimes people start with something very simple, but then they get better and better, and they improve and they improve. The main thing is to get people onto that sanitation ladder, for them to get themselves onto the sanitation ladder.
Robert, thank you very much. I think we'll leave it there. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Good to see you. Our next speaker is Professor Sir Rory Collins, Chief Executive of UK Biobank. Rory became Principal Investigator and Chief Executive of the UK Biobank prospective study of 500,000 people in September 2005. His work has been in the establishment of large-scale epidemiological studies of the causes, prevention and treatment of heart attacks, other vascular disease and cancer. I would like to invite Rory to explain how the UK Biobank will find cures for the major causes of premature death and disability. Rory.
Thanks very much. As I listened to the talks, I realized that I had three main disadvantages to overcome with talking about UK Biobank. The first is the UK bit. What I have to persuade you is that the findings from this study will be of worldwide significance. The second is that I notice on the blue cards that you have that there is a picture that I think is meant to be a chromosome or gene, and I have to persuade you that actually this study is far more relevant than for genes, but is also looking at lifestyle, environment, and all of the determinants of disease. And then thirdly, I realize that I'm talking about banking, and I'm trying to persuade you that banking is of value to the world. So how am I going to do that? I'd like to show us a couple of slides of a study done 50 years ago when Sir Richard Doll asked about 40 to 50,000 doctors what they smoked. Very crude questions. And then he followed them for the next 50 years. This was how people died, how those doctors died over the next 50 years if they were non-smokers. And this is what happened among the smokers. What was observed over that period of time were the full effects of smoking on a range of different diseases. He and Bradford Hill started this study because smoking appeared to cause lung cancer. But what they showed was that it caused a whole slew of other cancers, heart disease, other vascular disease, respiratory disease. And that smoking took about 10 years off your life expectancy. Doll was a smoker when he started this study. He stopped very quickly, and that's why he was able to do the 50-year follow-up. Because the next thing he showed was not only was smoking bad, this is the same graph, but if you did what he did and stopped at the age of 40, then you could avoid almost all of the effects of smoking. So asking 50,000 people a few crude questions about what they smoked and then following them has demonstrated the effects of smoking and the effects of stopping. And it's this study that has saved tens of millions of lives a year worldwide. Not just in Britain, not just in British doctors, but worldwide. And it's shown how valuable it is, not just to stop kids from starting, but to persuade adults to stop. Because if you want to actually affect the deaths from smoking over the next 50 years, you'll have almost no effect by stopping kids from starting. You'll only get the effect from getting adults to stop. I'd also like to tell you about the vision elements of this study, because really, Biobank, with 500,000 British participants in it, is like a microscope. It's going to allow us to see how different risk factors act together to cause disease. These are real data. This is showing the relationship between blood pressure and the risk of having a death from heart attack. And all these lines up here are the uncertainties about where you would put the point if you plotted the risk of heart attack death against blood pressure at different ages in 5,000 people. I say 5,000 people. There's a famous study called Framingham that's used by many doctors to tell you whether or not you should have blood pressure lowering therapy. Let's crank the microscope up a bit and have 50,000 people. Starting to come into focus, we can start to see the interaction between age and blood pressure and the risk of dying from heart attack. There appears to be an upward slope, but if we look at the elderly, is blood pressure really associated with the risk of dying from heart attack, or is the slope flat? That's important. Should we lower blood pressure in the elderly? Let's crank it up to maximum strength, and now we can see this beautiful thing coming into focus. We can see how age and blood pressure interact to influence our risk of having a heart attack. Who should we give treatment to lower their risk from blood pressure? And this is the kind of information that we need. But what kind of interactions might we be interested in? Well, smoking is the major cause of lung cancer in Britain. The second one is nothing to do with what you do, it's where you live. It's the radon in your homes. And interactions between radon, so environment, and smoking, lifestyle, and other things will determine your risk of getting lung cancer. Now, the beauty of these prospective studies is you can study not just lung cancer, but as Dole showed, all of the diseases associated with a particular risk factor. And so you can look at the full effects. So what is UK Biobank? To go to the question that I think was asked to the previous speaker, well, what is it? It's 500,000 altruistic individuals in Britain, men and women aged 40 to 69, who came along over the last 3 years and answered lots of questions, some quite intrusive ones about sexual partners, who had lots of measurements done on them and gave us a large number of different kinds of sample, blood, saliva, urine, which we've put into the bank, which is in Manchester. They also gave us consent to link them to all of their health records. So we're now linking them to information from national registries on death, on cancer, on what they go into hospital for. As time goes by, we're linking into their general practice records. About 70 or 80% of them have given us email addresses, so we can contact them and ask them about the things that affect their quality of life. We can give them little tests every few years to see whether there's evidence of cognitive decline. So we can study not just the causes of death and the causes of cancer, but the causes of the other things that cause misery and disability. Particularly getting much more reliable information about what are the determinants of Alzheimer's or of joint problems or of backache. So I think the range of different diseases that can be studied in this resource will be huge. And the different kinds of causes of those diseases, be they environmental, lifestyle, or genetic, will be enormous.